Okay, so as a kid, I was your typical 5-year-old. I watched a lot of SpongeBob and Power Rangers. Well, one day, my dad invited me to watch this old 70s movie called Superman. And at first, I was reluctant, because if you've seen the box cover for this movie, it was just a guy in red and blue tights. But I ended up watching it with him because I was curious. And surprisingly, from beginning to end, I was captivated. This guy had superpowers. He could run faster than a train, and he was bulletproof. So it was about a year and a half later that I watched this movie called Batman Begins. And this guy was even cooler. He was the guy in a suit beating people up. And at this point, I guess you could call me a DC fanboy. But there was always one big question that lingered in my head. Where are the superheroes? Adults only ever talked about politics or business when they could have been talking about this. Well, since then, I've learned to draw the line between reality and fiction, but the question is stuck, just evolved. So today, I want to answer one of my most intriguing childhood questions. Can superheroes exist? So naturally, I had to start off with a superhero selection process, and I thought, why not Superman? He's the first superhero I'd ever known. But then I realized he doesn't count because he was born on Krypton, a different planet. Well, I was born in Montana, so. I thought the Flash, because everybody likes the Flash because he has his own TV show now. But then I realized this doesn't count either because this guy was struck by lightning, and research shows that 100% of people who are struck by lightning do not get powers. They get electrocuted. So I just realized that Batman, it was so easy. He was just right in front of my eyes this entire time. So I'll just go with this guy. And for the purposes of this talk, I'll be sticking to the Nolan movie trilogy. So let's start with psychological background. If you haven't seen the movie or heard the story, Bruce Wayne's parents were killed right in front of him. From this, we can infer that there would be a plethora of mental health issues. Of course, there would be PTSD and depression, but I want to talk about the more complex ones. So he may or may not have complicated grief disorder, wherein someone mourns 6 months or more after the traditional period of mourning. So essentially, this guy is mourning for the rest of his life. And another one is split personality disorder, wherein someone has 2 or more personalities. This one's actually pretty obvious if you think about it, because the Bruce Wayne playboy persona and the angry guy who beats people up persona. So I'm moving on. So training, any good superhero needs training. So in the movie, his British butler guy says that he attends Princeton and receives several engineering degrees. So from this, we can assume that if you want to be a superhero without powers, you need to be educated, or at least really rich to get into the right schools. Next, his martial arts training consisted of a martial art called Kaisi, wherein it consists of Jeet Kune Do, boxing, and Filipino Kali. If you've seen the movies Taken or the Bourne series, you've seen this type of martial art in there. And while researching this, I realized that if you want to be a superhero without powers, you need capital, and a lot of it. So let's decide, because I was able to find a chart detailing Batman's various spending. So you can already tell him a lot of money, because his suit's already around $1 million, made out of light bulletproof material called Kevlar. Everything besides the grapple hook is plausible, and his gadgets would add up to around $160,000. And his weapons, based largely around stealth, would add up to around $10,000. So the costs are adding up. So if you've seen the movies, you know that he has 3 types of transport. I'm going to try to compare them to real life. So the tumbler, there's nothing really like it in life. If you've seen this in the movie, there's a bunch of crazy things. It's around $18 million, and you can kind of think of it as a tank race car. The Bat Pod, around $1.5 million. It's a new technology in where both the wheels are synced, allowing for faster speeds and aerodynamic. And the Bat, which was in the last movie, is actually based off a military plane helicopter hybrid, in which someone moves from side to side instead of using, as opposed to a yoke or a steering wheel. And for his British butler guy and his various training that I talked about earlier, such as the several engineering degrees, that add up to around 1.8 million. And in the first movie, his Batcave and his residence actually burns down. So that adds up to around 600 million, including the Dark Knight. So in total, the cost to be Batman would be around $682,451,350, which is a pretty heavy price tag. And if you're like me and you can't afford this, then I took the liberty of making my own superhero. So let's take a tour. So here we have a white guy. His name is White Guy. Let's say that he wants to go to college for 4 years at UCI. So I gave him a 4-year degree, and that'd be around $160,000 or $40,000 every year. Let's say after he graduates from college, he somehow just wants to fight crime because he read an article on CNN that made him feel good. So he goes to his dojo, and let's say he wants to become a black belt. That takes a minimum of 5 years or $100 per year, so around $500. So I went Amazon hunting. I was able to find some apparel for a superhero. So I gave him a skiing mask, which is around $5. Kevlar boots, which are still easy to run around in, around $220. A bulletproof, flexible jacket, which is still $680. Kevlar pants, which are still easy to move in, $150. And compression suit to hold it all together would be $150 also. And black spray paint to finish it off would be $5. So the total cost to make your own costume, at least for White Guy, would be around $1,210. Bam. Okay. So I was still on Amazon and I was looking for superhero-esque items. So I just gave him a superhero, at least that's what it was described as $500. I gave him throwing knives, or whatever you want to call them. Around 20, according to YouTube tutorials, if you take an old woodcutter and it'd be around $20 for one, and you can make 4 for one. So I gave him night vision goggles so he looked less like a burglar. That'd be around $2,300. And I also gave him smoke grenades so he could look cool while he runs away. So that'd be around $40 per 4. So the total cost for all the gadgets would be around $2,860. And finally, you need transportation. So I just gave him a motorbike, a fast one Ducati, around $12,000. So the price to be adequate man, which I made that myself, right? The price to be adequate man would be around $176,570, which is still 3,865 times less cheaper than Batman. Well, originally, I set out to answer whether superheroes could exist or not. In the world we live in, the probability of a superhero like Batman existing is very low, but the question still goes unanswered. The good news is that compassion, perseverance, and mental toughness can be one's defining traits, regardless of talent or money. Who knows, maybe one day Adequate Man might be on the front cover of New York Times. Thank you.